What is up, team? Nala here. Wanted to talk to you about our Skyreach challenge mode. So we did this last week, and I made the mistake of being ultra lazy and not uploading it. But just real quick, let's jump into it while we still have this on the screen. So up top there, you can see a green marker and a water elemental. So the strat that we're using allows us to skip the entire first set of trash because we have classes with pets, hunter and a mage, and a druid. And we made sure our resto druid took wild charge here, as well as the glyph of the stag, so that we could ride him like a vehicle, and so that he could charge up to the pet. So essentially, all we have to do at the beginning is, instead of going through these first few trash pulls, which are very, very difficult, we are able to completely ignore them by having him jump up there, everyone jumps over the wall using him, and off we are, and pretty much on the first boss immediately. So this is a strat that requires a specific comp. If you don't have a hunter, a mage, or another pet class, and a druid to jump up there, warriors can simply heroic leap up to that platform, and then your druid can wild charge to them if you don't have a pet class. But regardless, you need a druid for that strat. If you don't have a druid, one option is to just simply use an invis pot, and I would strongly recommend that because the trash there takes so much time. You are still required to kill the trash at the very bottom of the stairs, those 4 mobs, because you need them for your mob count, as you will get exactly 46 kills in here, and we'll show you how to do that in a second here. So, very first boss, Ranjit. Got to make sure you don't get hit by a wind wall, got to make sure you're nuking him down. He's a very straightforward boss, not a whole lot to do. One thing that we used to very much increase our damage was wind wall, not 4 winds. 4 winds is the quad formation that you see spinning around right now. Wind wall are actually the smaller ones that put a little dot on you, and that dot does a lot of damage. Now, glyph of mirrored blades that hunters use can reflect this. So if you have a hunter, make sure that they are running glyph of mirrored blades, and then have them pop deterrents and go stand in wind wall. And while it won't show up on recount, the boss will be doing a lot of damage to themselves. And so through the first bit of trash and through the first boss was only 1 minute and 45 seconds for us, simply because of the ridiculous hunter reflect damage and the druid jump strat that we used. So those are both strongly recommended tactics. Again, if you don't have the comp for it, use an invis pot, and good luck. So after that, you want to pull just the Raven alone. And if you look at his positioning right here, after the initial knockback, you want to get him so he's right in between those 2 large circular things at the bottom of the stairs, because that way when he throws the tank over his shoulder, he's actually only throwing him to the other side of those little things. If he's off a little bit, the tank can get a little wonky, but this way your DPS won't be affected at all by the charge. So when you get up here, you want to go ahead and pull the mobs on the right side. You're going to kill both sides, so if you have a preference, you can choose. But the right side is generally harder, so we did it first so that if we needed to reset, we would be able to do so much, much faster. So you want to kill the Initiates of the Rising Sun ASAP. They have an interruptible flash heal, and they put sun trinkets on the ground. These sun trinkets are largely ignorable unless you're bad and you get disoriented like us. If you kill the mob that put down the sun trinket before the sun trinket finishes its cast, the sun trinket will disappear without healing anyone. So that said, you need to be interrupting the flash heal that they cast, as well as the blinding flash, or flash bang cast by the solar flare, so that you're not getting interrupted, mobs aren't getting healed, and everything's dying quickly. I would strongly recommend figuring out a stun rotation for this and the next pull. So after you kill these mobs, for mob count, you're actually going to go ahead and kill the mobs on the other side. This pull is much, much easier, while it may not appear it. There are 2 Gale Callers, so you can get multiple banishes. You want to go ahead and focus interrupt them while nuking down the Initiate. I believe it's an Initiate of the Sun, the large healer mob. If you have healers have to die, it'll get marked for you, and you don't even have to think, because thinking's hard. So after that, once you kill them and no one gets banished, you can avoid these with grounding totems, spell reflect, various other options if you have classes not a shaman. Warriors work, hunters work, and that's it. So once you've killed them, you're actually most of the way through your mob count with 15. Now 45 is one of the higher mob counts in here, but because there are such specific pulls, doing the skip strategy that we did at the beginning, we actually kill almost everything else in here, and you're going to get a lot towards your mob count when you do what the bird pulls after this boss. So this is the hardest boss in Challenge Mode Skyreach. Now, I know he's a complete joke in normal, heroic, and mythic, but in Challenge, he's got a lot of health, so you got a hero. He heals himself if you don't interrupt the beams physically, and Burst, if you aren't interrupting beams, will do a lot of damage. So, similar to the first boss, the beams count as magic damage, and they technically are cast by the boss himself, not the little mobs on the side. So, again, if you have a hunter with Glyph of Mirrored Blades, if they soak a beam, they can deter and do an exorbitantly large amount of damage to the boss. And if you look at the recount there, you can see just how much damage the hunter's reflecting. You need to make sure that all these beams are being soaked. I would recommend always having the tank soak one, and then rotating your personal cooldowns and having DPS soak them. Just divide the room up into quadrants and you shouldn't have too much trouble with it. It's a pretty quick boss, but if you miss a beam, you're going to wipe, because the boss is going to heal a lot, he's going to do more damage during a burst, and your healer won't be able to keep up. The hardest pull, not a boss, is this pull right here. If you have multiple melee classes, you are able to pull these and the birds on the other side of the column here. That said, if you are like us and you have nothing but range DPS, good luck, because you're probably not going to have enough stuns. So what we did here is we actually used both capacitor totems, which require the 3-minute reset cooldown for your totems, as well as Binding Shot and a lot of root spam from our mage. So that was the cleanest kill of those mobs that we've had in all of our Skyreach attempts. And even then, it was still a little frenetic for our healer, because if you are standing that close and you have multiple fixates on you, you will die. Because every single stack of fixate on yourself that a bird casts increases your damage done, or damage taken by, I think it's 20%. So if you have 4 fixates on you, you're taking double damage from a bunch of different birds, and you're going to die real quick. So the important thing to note is that even if you are killing all the birds, the fixate debuff persists after death, and even while they are stunned. So if you are fixated, run and hide. That said, this next boss is very, very straightforward. Rukron, there are a couple ways to approach him. The first, stand in things. Not really recommended unless your healer thinks they can keep up with it. Blood DKs can always stay out, as well as Brewmaster monks. Everyone else, however, needs to make sure that they are running and hiding behind the pillar. Now, the solar flare mechanic of this boss is interesting to deal with. If you can one-shot the solar flares the instant that they are spawned, if you have very instant damage, multiple hunters with Chimera Shot, or a couple melee who can immediately swap to it, you can kill them. If you don't have instant damage, don't touch them. Slow them, stun them, they are stunnable. Slow them, stun them, grip them, do whatever you need to do, because if you kill them, they will spawn more. They aren't knockbackable, but they are slowable. Again, so if you cannot kill them instantly, don't touch them. We accidentally kill one toward the end of the fight here, and it gets a little stressful for us. We wiped a couple times because of accidentally cleaving onto them and things like that. Again, we're a very cleave-heavy comp with our Frost Mage, Elemental Shaman, Beast Mastery Hunter. So accidental cleave is sometimes possible. As you can see, we've already got some solar flares kind of low, but we did a good job balancing our slows here and standing in the right spots so that and getting some timely stuns off so that we could ignore, despite the fact that we had 3, the solar flares. So that said, it's a bit of a hectic fight, and it's one of the longer ones, but it's not hard from a DPS check standpoint. You should be able to kill him just before the second quills or immediately after the second quills. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and die, because you want to hero again. Heroing again is important. So jump off the edge, because you will spawn in the second room and won't have to do the jumping strat that you had to at the beginning. Now the reason for this is don't ever release. Don't ever release before you kill Ranjit, the bird guy, because you will spawn all the way back at the beginning and you'll have to reset. So once you kill Ranjit, it's okay to suicide and then run your way. The winds don't appear here, but they are there. If you look, I have scrolling things that tell me effects on me. I'm still being affected by the buff, so even though the visual effect is not there, winds are still slowing me down. I have the glyph of ghostly speed, so my Ghost Wolf actually travels at epic mount speed, which is why I'm able to move through this so quickly. It was actually a lot harder to do the winds without the visual effect to show you where the winds were stronger. So it took us a little bit longer for some of our DPS to get up. But the winds were still there. We're not sure why it bugged like that. One option is for hunters to pivot barrage up and pull these mobs down so that you don't have to do the wins. There's also a goblin glider fix that some people have been posting. It saves you a couple seconds. We're not going for world bests here. We're just trying to kill it. So again, this is how to get gold, not how to get your realm best or anything like that. So these next few mobs are all pretty difficult and pretty high burst damage encounters. So you need to make sure that you are cleaving pretty highly, but most importantly, killing life pack familiars ASAP. The way that life pack familiar works is whatever mob it's linked to, which is always the healer mob. Shocker. You know, these birds are really good at coordinated strategy. If that mob dies, and they have a lot more, the actual mobs have a lot more health than the life pack familiar. The life pack familiar dies instead, and that mob gets back to full health. So what you need to do is nuke down the life pack familiar and cleave your butt off, so that by the time the life pack familiar is dead, the other mobs are soon to follow. If you accidentally focus not the life pack familiar, which is the little bird on the ground we put a skull on at the beginning, the mobs will get healed back to full health, and you won't have the DPS to nuke them down in a timely fashion. Or if you get hit by any of the avoidable damage like I did, your healer might not be able to keep up. So you want to go ahead and go left, because left is easier than right. And then again, find the life pack familiar, mark it, and kill it. Because if you don't, then you will wipe. This is a very, very high damage pull and needs to be executed carefully. You have to make sure that you're using your stun rotation. We got a little bit behind here because Cap Totem went down a little late based on positioning. But once Life Pack Familiar was down, you are to focus down the Adept of the Dawn. If they get a Solar Shower off, bad news bears. But again, you have flashbangs here as well as Sun Trinkets, so you need to make sure that you are cleaving down the Sun Trinkets, or not cleaving down the Sun Trinkets, focusing down the Sun Trinkets and cleaving down all the other ads. It's good to spread out your range on either side of the pole because you'll get those spinning chakrams that do a large amount of AoE damage. So while one set of your range has to keep moving further back, the other side can be pretty much standing in place and turreting. So I was lucky enough not to get targeted with one of them and was able to just sit here and turret the mobs. After that, you can invis past this Grand Construct, you can ignore it. We looked at our time, realized how much time we had left, and realized how much of a cleave comp we have. So we went ahead and just pulled the Grand Construct and AoE'd it down because it wasn't a huge deal for us. So I would strongly recommend skipping it. You can use invis pots. You can use you can have your hunter aggro it. You can use AoE stealth. You can have your hunter aggro it, let everyone run past while they're sitting there in deterrence, and then just feign so it resets, and then you can pull the boss. But because of where our time was and the kind of small amount of damage that this mob does, we figured we'd just kill it because one of our DPS, I forget who, didn't have their invis pot off, or no, it was our tank, blew an armor pot on the previous pull, didn't have pots ready for invis, so we just had to kill it. We could have gone with the hunter strat, but we hadn't practiced it that way, and so we weren't that confident that we could pull it off. No offense to our hunter. I don't doubt her ability to do so. It was just a risk, and this was a very clean pull so far, so we wanted to just keep going with that. Different strategy for this last boss than for Mythic. You want to tank the boss not immediately at the door like you normally do. You want to take him off to the side, and the reason that you do this is because when you get the defenders, the little constructs that come in and cast shielding on the boss, the Skyreach shield constructs, they will spawn in the usual spot, and you can trap them and completely ignore them. This is a lot of save DPS. It just reduces the complexity of the fight so that the only thing you have to worry about are cast down and lens flare. Lens flare is completely avoidable damage. You can spread it out exactly how you want to. Cast down, we did a mediocre job with cast down. We had some people standing near the edge so that when cast down happened, they were already kind of over there, so we had to do some strategic swap nuking. But it ended up working out for us. Now, you want to have the boss dead before you get the second Skyreach shield construct, unlike we did. If you get a second Skyreach shield construct, obviously you can't trap both of them. Shocker, I know, one trap, it's a whole thing. But what you can do is you can just interrupt shielding and continue to nuke the boss. We got the second one to spawn at 20% health, so we only needed the one interrupt, which got off no problem, and then he just dies. And that's it. So thanks for watching, team. I hope you learned something. Cheers.